Good evening. The board has returned from executive session and there were no actions taken. Can I have a motion to open the meeting? A first, Lisa. A second, Alex. All in favor? Let us all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Each meeting, we hear from the students from different buildings about all the wonderful events going on at their locations. Tonight, we are pleased to welcome our students from Westside Elementary School.
Is that mic on? Register and
All right. Well, we want the mic.
oh yeah.
Oh, we have a plan. There you go.
What do you say?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. I'm Timmy Mullen, and I serve as the Westside School Student Council President. Thank you for inviting us to speak at this month's Board of Education meeting. It's an honor to be here this evening. I'm joined by Brett Goodwin, our Vice President, Lily Palachi, School Secretary, and Nora Davis, School Treasurer. On behalf of this year's officers and all of our Student Council class reps, we thank Ms. Ryan and Ms. Santoro for serving as our faculty advisors. November was our school's gratitude month, a time to pause and reflect on the many things we are thankful for, our families, friends, teachers, and school community, as well as the comforts and opportunities we take for granted. From running water and warm homes to the food we enjoy at school and at home. Gratitude helps us recognize how fortunate we are. Choosing gratitude reminds us that there's always something to be thankful for.
My name is Brett Goodwin. I serve as the Student Council Vice President. During Gratitude Month, we held our Thanksgiving food drive to support the Helping Hands Rescue Mission. This reminded us that showing gratitude is not just about saying thank you, but also about taking action and giving back to our community however you can. By sharing what we have, we can make a meaningful difference in the lives of those who are in need. Not only did we collect a great amount of food and money to help provide turkeys, but we also held our annual turkey drive. Students decorated t-shirts with Thanksgiving-themed designs. If students wanted to vote for a classmate shirt, they brought in winter weather gear like hats and gloves or baby supplies such as wipes and diapers, which were all donated. Gratitude can be shown through kindness, generosity, and taking action to support others.
Hi, I'm Lily Palachi. I am Student Council Secretary. December was Westside's Acts of Kindness Month. We were focused on spreading joy by encouraging community members to do simple acts of kindness. We celebrated gestures like holding the door open, writing a letter of thanks to a school aide, sharing with someone, or purposely saying something kind to brighten someone's day. When one person does something kind, it often inspires others to do the same. This is called a chain reaction. Even the smallest acts of kindness can make a big impact. Acts of Kindness Month is celebrated in December, but we continue to practice kindness every day in order to support our school's mission to create a culture of kindness where all Westside students feel a true sense of belonging, acceptance, and inclusion.
My name is Nora Davis and I serve as Student Council Treasurer. We joined Guso Primary to support one of their students who is bravely fighting cancer. On December 17th, we held a special EVT Community Spirit Day. Students and staff wore their EVT shirts or wore colors to represent his strength and to show our school-wide support. We wanted to do even more and launched our snowman pencilgram sales. One of our student council class representatives, Ian, came up with a great idea to encourage students to buy them. If we raised $1,000, Dr. Barnes would have to sing karaoke during morning assembly. Each student was given the opportunity to purchase a gram for $2 and write a message to a friend, classmate, or staff member. We sold over 300 snowman pencilgrams and made over $1,000, $1,027 to be exact, of additional funding with the sales totals and generous cash donations collected. Since we broke $1,000, Dr. Barnes sang for us and did a wonderful job. It was amazing to see everyone come together as a team, rooting for him and to remind EVT and his family that they're not alone.
Before moving into 2026, I would like to mention Michael Gallagher and the Dartmouth Robertsons for coming to visit us in December and entertaining the whole school with their amazing and talented voices. We also wanted to thank Ms. Rodriguez for leading the spelling bee this year. We had a 4th grader come out on top. We also congratulate the 5th and 6th graders participating in the Lion King Jr., which was also launched in December. Finally, I would like to congratulate Mr. Abley for his victory in this year's Faculty Ugly Sweater Contest. We also thank all the staff members who entered this year's competition. Always such a hit and so much fun. We did many exciting things in January, which is our school's Inspiration Month. We started off the month by doing our annual New Year's ball drop during the morning assembly and revisited the importance of having a positive mindset. Ms. Latham worked with students on training their brains for success. Dr. Barnes also introduced the 7 habits of highly effective kids, with us focusing on habit 1, being proactive. We spent some time unpacking the difference between being proactive or reactive. Proactive people take responsibilities for themselves and make sure never to blame anyone or anything when things don't go the way they wanted. A reactive person works to control a situation by causing something to happen rather than responding after it's too late.
January 27th was Holocaust Remembrance Day. During the week, we studied the timeline of when it began, watched a video about life in the ghettos, and learned about Mr. Aaron Barak. We were very lucky to hear our grade 6 teacher, Miss Jenny Buckner, talk about her grandparents, Ruth and Joel Turek, who were both Holocaust survivors. Miss Buckner read us a powerful letter written by her grandmother years back when she spoke to a group of students who were learning about the Holocaust. In the letter, she reminded us that inclusion is better than exclusion, tolerance is better than ignorance, and peace is much better than war. We held our annual and beloved Super Bowl soup drive. The deal was, if we collected 1 layer or touchdown of cans, we earned Jersey Day on the Thursday before the Super Bowl. If we collected 2 rows of cans, we earned Pajama Day on the day after the Super Bowl. We knew this would be the best motivation for kids to bring in soup, and we achieved it. We had fun for a great cause and definitely enjoyed the February bonus Spirit Days.
February is our school's Friendship Month, a time where we focused on building strong relationships with one another and recognizing the values of health, supportive, and positive friendship. Our month begins with us learning that Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow in a special visit from 2 very cute and adorable furry dogs from the North Shore Animal League. We learned how dogs are working to bring joy to schools, hospitals, and in places where people do not necessarily imagine a dog even being allowed. We were given the opportunity to hear and ask questions about their working dogs in schools. It was a great experience for all, and we all felt the warmness in our hearts despite the colder weather we've been having. February is Black History Month, and the theme is A Century of Black History Month honorees. This February marks the 100th anniversary and celebrates the many contributions of African Americans and the impact they have made in our society. We look forward to learning more throughout the rest of the month.
We can continue learning about the 7 habits of highly effective kids and began looking at habit 2, begin with the end in mind. A dream is a wish and a goal is a target. In order to meet a goal, we have to plan out the steps and efforts needed in order to ensure that we are setting ourselves up to be successful. We would like to thank the CSH Educational Foundation for sponsoring this year's STEAM Andes Night. It was so much fun, and we all had the best time exploring all the experiences. All the teachers made it so fun for all the kids. The teachers really got creative this year. For our February activity, the Student Council will be encouraging students to make donations to the Ronald McDonald House, an organization that supports families through difficult times. This is a wonderful way for us to show friendship, not only to each other, but also to our larger community. To inspire participation, each student who brings an item will enjoy a Lifesaver lollipop. This is an activity we are all looking forward to after February break. And we are excited to spread friendship, generosity, and smiles throughout our school. We are also about to celebrate our 100th day of school. Excitement is in the air as we celebrate 100 amazing days filled with learning, friendships, and fun.
We have even more in store for Student Council, Westside School, and our community. Please be on the lookout for upcoming fundraisers and activities that Westside will host as we continue to show that together we can make a difference. Last but not least, if you did not get enough of the Westside this afternoon, you can come and join us at Family Bingo Night. Thank you for allowing us to present at this evening's Board of Education meeting. At this time, we are happy to open the floor to field any questions, comments, or inquiries that you may have. Your feedback and engagement are truly appreciated. Thank you so much.
That was great, what an excellent job. Board, any questions for students?
That was amazing. I can't believe how busy you are. And this is good to know all that's going on. I actually learned a few things, so wonderful. What's your favorite thing so far being a West Sider?
My favorite thing is definitely, wait, do you mean for student council or just school in
Anything
general?
you love about West Side?
Probably going into school and just seeing your friends every day, and definitely morning assembly because we all get together and we celebrate birthdays. If anyone did something like good, you know?
So I agree with Timmy, but also just like waking up and knowing that I'm going to school with a bunch of amazing people who are super nice. My favorite thing about school is probably being in student council because I feel like it's kind of special because not a lot of people get to do it.
My favorite part is probably after school, the clubs, and like the teachers too.
Amazing, thank you.
Take a picture, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Coming down for a picture.
Anytime.
Oh, sorry.
Match the flag. As president of the board, here are my updates to the public. Tonight's agenda includes a number of exciting and meaningful items that directly support students, staff, and the broader school community. We are grateful to accept a $1,000 donation from NYSER, which helps in part to support our STEAM Amenities event held last week at the junior senior high school. I attended the event with my 6th-grade daughter and her friends, and they truly enjoyed it, staying from beginning to end. I would also like to thank the Education Foundation for their sponsorship of this special evening and express our appreciation for their continued support in making these enriching experiences possible for our students. On this agenda, we also will be accepting 2 generous donations from our Education Foundation. One, supporting the Don't Press Send program, which will help staff, students, and parents navigate an increasingly complex digital world, and the What's in Your Box grant, which supports hand-on woodworking engineering projects at the elementary level. Together, these grants represent more than $61,000 for direct support from the Education Foundation to enhance student learning and growth across our district. Also on tonight's agenda are several instructional and operational items, including field trips, the adoption of a new AP pre-calculus mathematics book, and the review and revision of our professional development plan by our professional development committee. I would also like to take a moment to recognize the retirement of 2 junior-senior high school teachers, English teacher Ms. Lynn and social studies teacher Ms. Athanasio. Thank you for your many years of service to Cold Spring Harbor community. It's greatly appreciated, and we will hold a retirement ceremony later in the school year. This evening, we will also be voting on a memorandum of agreement with our administrators bargaining unit, which includes our building level administrators, principals, and directors. This marks the 3rd bargaining unit with which the district has reached an agreement for the 25-26 school year. As previously shared at the January Board of Education meeting, the district has met with the state-appointed fact finder to assist in negotiations with the HTA, our teachers bargaining unit. Both parties have agreed to a final submission date of March 10 for all documents related to negotiations, with an independent fact finder's report expected in early to mid-April. Once issued, this report will become a public document. The district has been and will continue to be open and committed to meeting and negotiating with the HTA in good faith to reach an agreement that supports both our students and our staff. Thank you, and I hope everyone enjoys a relaxing and well-deserved winter recess. When we return, I hope to see you at Westside School's production of The Lion King Jr., March 6th and 7th in the PAC. I have been working with the director and the Westside School Theater Association on the costumes for the show, and they are colorful and fun, and it has been an absolute pleasure to see the excitement and smiles this week as the students prepare for the performance. That's it, Joe. I'll turn it over for you, your superintendent.
Thank you, Heather. Good evening, members of the Board of Education, students, staff, families, and members of our community. Welcome to the February 10th Board of Education meeting. As we head into the President's Day winter recess, I've taken some time to reflect on the many incredible accomplishments across our district over the past month. It truly has been a period filled with learning, creativity, and community connection. Kindergarten registration is underway this week, and we are excited to welcome our newest Seahawks to the family. Our aquaponics lab is officially up and running, providing students with hands-on opportunities to grow plants and raise fish together within a sustainable, recirculating ecosystem. This innovative learning space exemplifies real-world interdisciplinary learning. We're also thrilled to host our annual STEAM Amenities Night, where an estimated 800 students, parents, and staff came together to celebrate science, history, creativity, and the arts. The evening included a recap of our Normandy trip, artwork, 3D design, karaoke with Dr. Barnes and Mr. Edley, and so much more. Both the Aquaponics Lab and the STEAM Amenities Night were made possible through generous support of our Education Foundation, which we are deeply grateful for the continued partnership. I'm also happy to announce that a full set of fish tanks in the wet lab are up and running. The marine life are being added to properly balance the tanks, and we expect additional rows of tanks to be operational in the coming weeks. This past weekend, our students once again impressed us with an outstanding production of The Music Man. Their dedication and talent were on full display, and we could not be more proud. Across the district, students have been excelling in academics as well. We held geography and spelling bees. We are proud to recognize students accepted into the All-County Art Exhibition. Congratulations to May Werner, Julia Alexander from Lloyd Harbor School, Amelia Spanos, and Elizabeth Wellenbacher from Westside School. We also continued our commitment to professional growth with staff development sessions led by Ms. Libertini, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. At the high school, congratulations to juniors Alan Wenk and Catherine Canali, who earned awards.
Alex White.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, Alex, I have Alex Wenk here too, my apologies. Who earned awards as co-delegates for the United Nations at the UN co-delegates for the United States on the NATO Committee. Early this month, we celebrated National School Counseling Week, and I want to once again thank our school counselors for their essential support they provide our students every single day. Other highlights include Colonial Day at Lloyd Harbor School, Global Play Day across the elementary schools, supporting students' cognitive and social development through free play, book fairs, speech and debate honors, expanded elementary clubs, and a sixth grade transition presentations as students prepared for the junior high. And that's just a snapshot of all that's been happening. We're also looking forward to celebrating our 100th day of school this Thursday, as many exciting events are ahead of us this month. Later this evening, Dr. Celentano will be presenting the first of several budget presentations for the 26-27 school year. Tonight's presentation will provide an overview of the budget development, funding considerations, and role of state aid. As we head into recess next week, I hope that everyone is able to take time to rest, spend time with family and friends, and simply be present with one another. Thank you for your continued partnership and support. I look forward to the important work ahead and to celebrate many more successes together. Thank you for being here tonight and for being such an essential part of the Close McCarthy family. Please take care of yourself, and if you can, take care of someone in need. Heather?
This is the first discussion section of our agenda. I open the floor to any other discussion items from members of the Board of Education. But we do have 3 items that are up for discussion: UPK, electric buses, and regionalization. So why don't we start with those?
Very good.
So speaking of regionalization and the electric mandated buses, just going back to the regionalization, Cold Spring Harbor, we did opt out of regionalization, although we really only opted out of the planning part of it when regionalization was passed recently. So it was passed in the state. We now have to, which we did, craft a resolution saying that we are officially opting out. So that's where we stand on regionalization. I'm going to get a little bit into the electric buses. Last weekend, Alex and I and Joe went to a New York, it's the New York State Coalition Board. I'm sorry, I might be getting the title wrong. But they had a coalition, the coalition had a legislative breakfast, and it brought together school board members from across the region, and there were also several state and local legislators there for a thoughtful discussion on public education, governance, and the role of locally elected school boards. One of the primary topics that we discussed was strengthening communication between school boards and legislatures, particularly when they're drafting these types of legislation like regionalization or mandating electric buses. A lot of times we don't really know that it's happening until after it happens. So they're suggesting that we should come to some of the lobbying days and be more in the know of these mandates that are coming down from the state. Let's see, we also talked about the impacts of a lot of these unfunded mandates like electric buses, how they may impact school district operations, governance, and funding. Board members emphasized, the importance of being aware of relevant legislation. I already went through that, sorry. Let's see. Okay, so going back to the electric buses, that was kind of one of the big topics there. The electric bus mandate from New York State was, it's tough because it's going to significantly impact our budget. It's going to be very expensive. The timeline is short, and I learned at this meeting, what was upsetting to hear is that the state actually gave themselves a an extended 5 years on their vehicles having to be electric, but yet the schools were left out of that. So I kind of feel like they're putting our kids in harm's way by having us implement these electric buses before they're actually going to do it. It's going to cost us millions of dollars, and it's a safety issue being that a lot of these electric batteries have gone on fire. So that mandate could cost the district millions and of course raise serious safety issues, especially given reports, like I said, of those batteries going on fire. It's important for the public to be aware of these concerns and to know that school boards are actively working to address and, whenever possible, push back on mandates that may negatively affect students, staff, and taxpayers. So, just
Thank
transparency
you.
there.
Yeah, I think one of the major concerns that people brought up about the electric buses too is that in a number of school districts, it's so cost prohibitive that they would actually have to get rid of educational programming to pay for the buses. And they also, there's no plan to have the buses built in time. And there's school districts like Garden City who have their own bus fleet, and then they'd have to abandon the bus fleet, which also is not really environmental, right? So there's all these major issues, but really the worst part, I think, is for the school districts who really struggle already to meet their financial, budgetary needs just to get kids educated, fed through the school day, teachers paid, and they are now going to possibly be bankrupt by these bus mandates that the state has exempt themselves from.
I mean, it
So
could cost upwards of $10 million.
the idea
just to
is-
give you like an estimate.
That's-
It's not like 100,000. We're talking
And the
a lot
idea
of
really
money.
behind the coalition is that all these different school districts, we've come together in different issues, and it's really strength in numbers, right?
Yes.
So it started here on Long Island, but we're starting to see people from upstate come to the meetings, and we were laughing that all of us, I'm a native New Yorker, Westchester is not upstate, but there was one person from Westchester who said she could consider herself from upstate, but then we had somebody from Rochester, right, and at one point, that there's actual upstaters who are interested in getting involved too. So we're trying to make it a statewide push to make sure that there's still local control, that our kids are still getting what they need, and that the reason that you elect school boards is so that we can make sure your voices are all heard, which is why many of you are here tonight, but your voices are all heard as we plan and provide the best education for our communities.
Do you want to speak a little bit to the UBK?
It wasn't passed, right? The more money, the 10,000?
Correct. Right now, the
Yeah.
governor's proposal,
Oh, sorry, Mark. Did you have a question?
Yeah, on the buses,
Yeah.
when does the mandate start?
What was it, 20?
it depends.
I think it depended on, I can't remember what they said now. I have it written down somewhere.
There are phases, and it has to be by 2035, all buses have to be electric.
But what was the first phase? Was it-
27, 31, and there are dates that can be pushed
Coming
off
fast.
by various
2027.
variances and the like, so there's no clear-cut date. And to top it off, there is not enough power for the buses. It's estimated that there are 12,500 buses needed, and the furthest anyone can go on a single charge is 100 miles.
Right.
So,
And they
We
also
would
talked
never
about
have a
the
field
weight.
trip to New York City again.
Like the weight of the buses.
Mhm.
They're also talking about the infrastructure, like the bridges and the tunnels, the roads, like how they can even handle buses that weigh this one. There's so much that goes into it to just throw down a mandate like that and give us a date with no plan and no funding is
Mhm.
just,
And they
it's
have to be parked
outrageous.
10 feet apart
Because of the fire.
in case they catch on fire,
So-
so there's not enough room. That's real, I mean, really what we're dealing with, and there's not
We
enough
didn't
room
even know
for
this was
in the
going
bus
down.
depots.
We, I think a year ago, signed a 5-year contract, right, on the busing?
Correct.
So
Right.
what coverage do we have in that in terms of if the mandate goes through? Will they, in that contract, be obligated to provide electric buses to the district?
Yes, they would have to provide the electric buses to the district, or go bankrupt.
So
There's
do
talk
we-
about multiple bus
They would go
companies
bankrupt.
not being able to
And
sustain.
we would
Or
be,
take their buses to another state.
we wouldn't have to
and start-
incur an additional fee if they have to convert? Is that in the contract?
There's no doubt, and part of the charges and increases that many school districts are facing by these, especially outside bus companies, or is their plan to ramp up. Now, if the mandate goes away, I don't think we're going to see that
In our
money.
contract, there's language that if they have to buy an electric fleet, then we will be...
No.
No, so we're good for the next 4 years at least.
It's still their response, but
Unless
it's
they
their
go
it's
bankrupt.
incumbent upon them to get the buses.
And then, as far as housing the buses, they come and go, so we don't have to work.
We don't have to house them, but the bus companies, like, they won't have the real estate to house.
No, I get it. I'm just
buses.
thinking for us, we're good for 4 years
Well,
at least
eventually it's
until,
all gonna get pushed down to the
unless they-
taxpayer.
Right.
That's the problem.
right.
You know.
I'm just trying,
Yeah,
I
And
don't
it
know,
affects
yeah,
our
just
kids
figuring out
tremendously,
next,
yeah.
And our neighbors,
one day at a
right?
time. But, yeah, okay, good stuff.
Well, not really, but I know what you're thinking.
What? I mean, it's not a today, it's a very soon problem, that's all. I'm just,
Yeah, I think the point was really more that this organization of all of the school boards coming together to help each other and protect districts where it may be even a bigger problem
Yeah, we have to work together.
is really important. We have to work together, and we're working together to make sure that we all remain in control of our own schools too. So there's a lot of talk about going up to Albany and getting more involved and just making sure that they know that we're here and we're loud and we're not going to just
Right.
accept things like this
And we
moving
can
forward.
Try to discuss like what the real potential impacts would be on us, you know? A lot of these lawmakers, they're not, you know, they're not here on the day-to-day. You know, they need to hear from us.
Mhm.
And
They were in a
so-
bubble.
Right, we
They were in
need
a
to,
bubble.
we
They
need to
could
get
care
more
less
involved
about
in that.
mandates.
no doubt. Okay.
Does anyone have anything else they'd like to?
Well, UPK's still on the list, right?
Yeah.
You do that, and then I'll,
So in the governor's current budget, the proposal is to have $10,000 per student. Whether that holds or not, we shall see if it comes out in the budget. With some discussion about requiring UPK in 2 to 3 years going forward, again, depending upon what gets passed. Some of the difficulties many school districts have is simply space, not having enough space to house the UPK programs. And secondly, how that money is allowed to be used. Currently, you can't use it for transportation, and there's lots of other restrictions on how that money is spent. We're looking to lobby if that money stays at $10,000 to be able to use it more flexibly in each district for what's best for what they need.
Right,
As
local
opposed to
control.
local
But
control
what
over
we
that money.
might need in UPK is different from what someone else might need for UPK. So we kind of want there to be more flexibility and control from the school districts on how they use the money. That was the big discussion.
Still very vague on the state's desires here.
couple quick housekeeping things. Start with an easy one. So we instituted a mail opt-out, and I put one child in the no mail and one child in the mail. I haven't seen a difference yet, and I'm a little concerned. Like, what is not being sent through the mail? Because I even got that honor roll letter, which I can't imagine that's legally required to be sent through the mail. That's a complete waste of money. So I had both kids got it, and both went through the mail, and one is signed up for paperless. So what's going on with that, please?
I would have to look. I mean, I know we have the list of who opted out to
Okay.
receive paper. I would have to check that.
Let's make sure that's really working, because we were trying to save money on that. Condensate, I'm starting with the easy ones. Condensate tanks, Eric, any update on that? Are we going live soon, or?
Yes, as soon as weather permits it. So they got the stuff and we're just waiting on them to confirm. And with us, when we feel comfortable with the weather, the temperature for them to do this.
Has the weather been bad? I'm just kidding.
So during break, it's not going to be done, I guess?
April, realistically, yeah, but February, no.
No, okay. They're in though? They're just waiting?
From what they told me, yes, they had
Okay.
their equipment in.
Very good.
And we can see why we ordered them. I think we're 5 or 6 months out from the initial order, so we can see it takes quite a long time to get this equipment in.
Are we going to discuss it next meeting, a therapy dog at Westside? When is that happening?
We could talk about this.
Okay. Is there going to be a presentation, or do we have to approve? I guess we have to approve it, right?
It depends on how we go and what we can and can't do. We've been in contact with Dr. Barnes, the Westside PTG, and trying to find ways to work out to get a therapy dog into the district. We've been working with their insurance company. There are some things that the dog can't take the test to be certified as a therapy dog until it's 1 year old. Currently, the dog, Midnight, am I correct with the name of the dog that we're looking at, is 6 months old. So at this point, if this dog is donated to the school or another method that we're possibly looking into, we can't at this point say we've adopted a therapy dog because it hasn't taken the test, nor is it eligible to take the test.
So one parent asked me this question. They said their kid is extremely afraid of dogs. They won't go to homes that have a dog in it. If we have a student that's afraid to go to school, what do we do?
We would work out, and Dr. Barnes, if I miss anything, please tell me. We would work out on how, if it's in the class, it obviously wouldn't go with that student. If it's used during recess, the student does not to be there, or a library. So we would work out ways for the dog not to be with the student. 2 weeks ago, we had a dog come in. Dr. Barnes said he sent out a message to the community. No one asked to opt out. There was a student or two who did not like dogs and the like. One of the parents discussed this with Dr. Barnes and actually was happy to help get over a fear of having a dog. They stayed towards the back. I have to say, I was there that morning. It was really nice. From 2nd grade all the way through 6th grade, the students were very, very engaged. Boys, girls, everyone really enjoyed having the dog there. It was really nice to see, and this is one of the things we discussed about as being one of the steps to seeing how a therapy dog would operate within the building. It was really nice to see.
So maybe so it sounds like we have 6 months to figure this out, because if that's the dog we're going to go with then?
It's a little bit more challenged now because they're a business and they want to, quote unquote, get rid of the dog and get their money. And if they hold on to it for another 6 months, there's a fee for them to keep the dog. So it's not as easy as I think one would think it would be.
So what happens? The dog is adopted and Dr. Barnes has the dog, is that right? And then the dog continues with training to pass the exam, and then if the dog, I mean, I can't believe a dog educated at Westside would not pass an exam, but let's just say on the off chance he has a bad testing day.
Right. They can retake the test.
Can they retake the test?
They do makeups.
Okay, and then what if he's just a poor test taker, then what?
These are all things we're trying to work out. And one of the things, as we discussed, is if the dog is donated to Dr. Barnes, it is in violation of New York State policy on the dollar amount.
Okay.
We would have to work that out.
Okay.
So this
So
isn't
it's like
as...
donated to the school, and, okay, well, but
And that's a little different to donate because it's a living. We joke if this was a swing set, it would be a 15-minute conversation would be done. We've spent hours, and the PTG and Dr. Barnes and everyone has been so dedicated into trying to weave and work and find an appropriate way. But it's not an inanimate object, which is so much easier. It's a live animal, and there's so many other layers to this. It is challenging, but again, it was truly wonderful to see how much every student there enjoyed the dog.
I guess, so to Mark's question though, like, what's the timeline on this then for us as far as?
We've been working with our council to try and find a quick, it depends. It depends on how we go about it. We've looked at other avenues. There are organizations where we could have a dog come in once a week, and it's their dog as a possibility. There is a couple of schools around on the island where they have I'm gonna say therapy dog, but don't quote me exactly, but that's with a dedicated handler who is an aide or assistant, say, in the library, and their responsibilities are for that dog. If Dr. Barnes is, that poses a challenge, because he has his responsibilities as being the building principal, and all that goes with that. So it's a lot of work.
How many?
Times have changed, right? My head of school's dogs just ran back and forth across the
Yes.
second floor of my school when I was in high school. But,
Yes.
yeah.
Then there was
Yeah.
one district said, we have a dog, it was there before the current administration came in, he just was there, moving on. So it's
How many,
working.
how many districts have dogs?
As far as I know, 2 on the island. There are some districts that have, as I mentioned, a dog from an organization come in once a week, once every other week, once a month, or so on and so forth, which obviously is much easier on us, but we're really, really trying to work this out.
Maybe start with that, and then until we can get a dog? Is that the way to go?
That might be.
I mean, are we gonna have a formal presentation, or like, just trying to get a
We
sense?
will, as we went down this path, it's an onion. The more you
Okay.
look into it, the more things pop up as we think about it.
Very good. In terms of sports tryouts, we just got the email, they're coming up. There was questions about the tryout process. Are any changes being made this year, specifically to the tennis or the golf process, or any other teams that no? Because there were some parents that had issue with, and I'm sure you've heard that, right? No? Okay, so
Yeah, with the tenant.
with the tennis, some parents said if you have been through the process before, you know how to work the process, so you make the team, and we shouldn't have systems where you can work a process. And also golf is on the honor system. So some kids were told by their parents, you be honest. And they came back to me with complaints about that because they were honest. And I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been brought to you, but maybe it's something we should look at, because we're in tryout season coming up, and so many kids in this district participate in sports. We want to get that right, of course.
I think Mr. Mangino may have been taken up. I mean, we had discussions about, let's talk about golf at first. They're playing 4 or 6 per hole, I guess it's 4, and we don't have a coach at every location, and students are on the honor system on how many strokes they have per hole.
But they keep the score for each other.
They keep the
So
score
like
for
if
each-
you and I are playing, I keep your score, you keep my score,
Right.
and at the end, you both have to agree to
You
keep
have to
that,
agree to
right?
that.
But that's how it works in competitive kids golf too. Like
Okay.
my kids play golf tournaments, and that's how it is.
I don't want to get into these stories on this,
Yeah.
but I heard that some kids felt this system. Anyway, if that's something we can at least look at, maybe it is good. Maybe everything is good, but if there are ways we can improve, why not try?
Can I add something more to the discussion? I just want to mention this real quick. I know we want to move on, but some parents were bringing up the topic of recess. I know I brought this up before,
Yes.
and there's been a few emails and some meetings that have gone on. We currently have, 15 minutes of recess, 20? So the complaint is that by the kids, by the time they line up and get outside, they're getting like 15 minutes of recess. So there is a bill in Congress right now. They're trying to mandate a minimum of 25-minute recess, which I agree with, and I know a lot of parents do. So I just want to put it out there. I'm advocating for that myself. And I think that it's it's something to consider now when making the schedule for next year, that if we could implement another 5 minutes into our recess, I think it could make a big difference in some, in most kids' days. They do a lot of work. In my opinion, I'm a teacher myself, I feel like the curriculum is kind of like second grade curriculum now. I feel like first graders are doing, it's really become rigorous, which we appreciate, and I think our kids are getting a great education. But I think some more fresh air, running around, getting out there, their energy benefits the kids and the teachers. I think we're doing a great job of keeping our classes smaller, class size smaller, the ICT classes, I think we're really doing so much to benefit the kids. I think this could be an added thing to their day.
If I could, and on top of that, it's not just 5 more minutes recess, it's those brain breaks or stretching or
It's
movement
not the same,
activities.
yeah.
In addition to,
Yeah, but it's not the same.
during the day where if they've been in academics for 2 hours and lunch isn't there yet or something, giving them those opportunities. So it's in addition to seeing how we do that and make sure we're consistent across the board. We actually discussed that earlier today.
I actually had that on my list as something, and what I was, I'm gonna propose a very unpopular thought. So doesn't Jericho have 3 more teaching days than we do? If we add another day,
And they have longer recess.
you can add more recess, because we have a whole new day of teaching, and then you don't lose that time because it's spread out over an extra day. So there's your 5-6 minutes, and that idea will go over like a lead balloon, but
Well,
we can.
but in elementary, didn't we extend math too?
Math is long.
Math is quite long, I think, at the elementary level, and I'm wondering if we need to look at whether or not we're seeing the result there. It just seems like developmentally, that's a really long time for elementary kids to be seated in a math class when they do learn by playing at that age, and that's so important for them also. So I'd like to look at just the time spent there as well, because I don't know that we're seeing, and I could be totally wrong, but I don't know that an extra 15 minutes in math as opposed to an extra 15 minutes outside. I think the mental health benefits might outweigh the math test score benefits. And I know we're very focused, I'm one of the people who's very focused on test scores, but kids' mental health is important too, and their physical health. So I'd like to look at that too.
Sure, I mean, I can just say there's always challenges whenever it's not just simply adding 5 minutes to one period, because we have multiple lunch periods. So now you're asking about adding multiple 5 minutes across the 4 or 5 lunch periods. that
Yes,
we
that's
offer
what we're
them.
asking
You know
for.
what I mean?
Yep.
So that then structures the elementary day differently. It's often can impact then busing and other things. So we want to make sure we are in the process of looking at scheduling. We've examined multiple options, considering recess is one of them, examining math. I also do want to say that we're bringing in illustrative math next year in the 3 through 6 band. That is not a stationary math model. It is a math and movement model. It is center-based. It is not just sitting and doing math. So doing a direct comparison between the results that we're getting now versus what will happen next year with the new program, there's a lot of different moving parts, and so therefore it won't necessarily correlate directly. So that's just important for us to
No, that's a
take
great point, thank you, and it's excellent that you're bringing in a new math that gets them up and moving and more engaged, yeah.
Can I ask your, so PE is mandated, just thinking about getting the kids moving. In K to 3, it's mandated 120 minutes a week, is that correct? Are we giving that to our kids?
So we meet the state mandates in all of our grade levels, but we actually give our 5 and 6 actually gets more time based on the PE, because they get PE 3 days a week as opposed to 2 days a week. So that is important, but we're meeting the state mandates across the board in all grades.
Because I thought grades 4 to 6 had to be a minimum of 3 times a week.
It is not a minimum. So, and it's always based on the block, right? So it's based on the total number of minutes in your block. And
So
when we
is it-
examined it, and we, Mike Bongino has prides himself in the fact that we exceed what it is that the state mandate is in our grade levels, and that we've examined that.
So last year, we voted on a new math book, right? And that's been rolled out?
So that was upon my arrival here. We rolled that out in K to 2 for this year. I remember it was a phased rollout. So we did that in K to 2. For this curricular year, it will be in 3 to 6. For next curricular year, we've already begun training the teachers in the 3 to 6 band. As of last week, they received their first introduction to illustrative math. And then we have subsequent trainings throughout the remainder of this curricular year with the intention of curriculum writing throughout the summer to onboard the teachers and be ready to go in September.
How is that new book working?
I like it a lot. I think when we looked at the gaps that were existent in our state data and we were examining, the students' ability to discuss and write about mathematics and use mathematical language to describe their thinking, I think that was a gap where we had identified and I had highlighted in our score reports. I'm finding when I pop into math classrooms and look at illustrative lessons, the ability of our kindergarten through second graders to have mathematical discussions about their conceptual understanding is impressive.
Excellent.
And it is truly remarkable to see them, and they enjoy talking with each other about math, and we've had quite a few parents comment about how when they come home and they talk about what goes on during the school day, they talk about mathematics and how to solve problems. So it's been going very well.
Any progress made on the district writing grants or hiring or?
So we are currently, we just did get the NYSER grant. I know it's small, but that's a start. And Eric and I are going to be working on a record storage grant together, but it hasn't been posted yet. So we're kind of in that lull right now where there aren't a lot of grants open at this time, but we are beginning to actively monitor them and looking into whatever opportunities that we have to bring outside funds into the districts.
How big is the grant for the storage you're looking to?
I don't personally know because it hasn't been released yet. So what we did is we made sure that we signed up for the notification. I was in email communication with the group. But in all honesty, have not had time yet to look into the past recipient winners, which would be the next step.
And we'll be voting on to accept the grant from the Education Foundation, and we have more in the hopper that was sent to them that they're very excited about.
And then we were going to take more time to chase down some of the loose ends in that allowance report, like the koi pond, and where are we standing on that?
Yes, so we had a meeting and we received some updated information, some more details. So my plan is after we finish this budget presentation is to take the report that was started by Joe Dragone and add to that so that there's more detail that we've been provided with, and my hope is to have that to the board on Friday.
Did we get an answer to the question I asked last meeting, that if the architect made an error in the design plans, that's actually on them and their insurance, not for us to make up the difference?
If you're looking for if you're looking for a legal response, I think the advice of counsel should come in executive session,
Right.
but I'm happy to provide that to you.
But we have an answer?
I do have an
Good.
answer.
Yeah, excellent. And then, almost done, so only have to do this in public. So, interest and review of, so the school insurance, we've been talking about having it looked at for, let's call it a year, year new, but is that on your list? Because I would like us to have that reviewed by other potential providers to see if we're getting the best policy we can for the district. Is that on you?
It is absolutely on my list. I already reached out to Dennis's office and learned that we do have to go out for an RFP.
Okay.
So we're right in the midst of budget season, and I did speak to Joe about it. Our plan is to construct an RFP this spring and collect the responses to consider if a future change is warranted.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think Dylan had a question for discussion.
I just have a quick question, sorry. So I was wondering if there was a long-term plan regarding the new locked door policy, because being in the classroom, I've noticed that when students are going to the restroom, it's very disruptive and distracting for teachers to have to stop their lesson to open the doors for them. Also, I've heard people bring up the safety issue of many students being locked out of their classrooms during passing periods, waiting for their teacher to get back to the classroom.
There is no one-size-fits-all in security, and in working with various security organizations, Suffolk County, Nassau County Police, their recommendation across the board is classroom doors should remain locked at all times. They say that without fail. Oftentimes, there are contradictory information from various law enforcement. This is one that consistently I won't say all, but everyone we've spoken with is locked doors save lives. And that's why we switched to that procedure. It unfortunately is a little inconvenient, absolutely, but that is their universal recommendation, locked doors save lives. Thank you, Dylan.
Thanks for jumping in.
Yes.
Is there anyone else?
The only thing I wanted to say is, I know we have a number of people here this evening, and I see that we still have budget and committee reports and then audience to visitors. Would it be?
I think we're going to take a motion. I think Dennis, right, to move it up.
If you want to take,
If I wanted-
sure, if you'd like to take switch the agenda, you can take a motion.
I thought it was normally earlier, normally earlier in the meeting, or is it always after the?
I think it's always after, maybe just in case people have questions about the presentation.
So I think
But we do have a catch-all at the end anyway, so I don't think it would be a problem.
Yeah, I think the original idea, when we put it in a few years ago, was that it could be for people who like arrived and then there's one at the end, but.
Just move it tonight.
We can just,
To
I just
save
have to get a
people
motion
time.
to do that.
Yeah, let's just move it.
Right,
Good
let's
idea.
do a motion. So I'm gonna take a motion to move the audience to visitor section up to this moment. Can I go first? Alex, a second. Mark, all in favor? Okay. So here we go. We will now continue with our first audience to visitors. The Cold Spring Harbor Board of Education and Administration welcomes your attendance at Board of Education meetings. Audience to the public affords residents an opportunity to address the Board of Education on both agenda and non-agenda items. Each resident is allowed to speak for 3 minutes. This is not a forum to discuss student or staff-specific issues. Please contact the district separately on these matters. If anyone would like to speak at the podium, you need some microphone.
Good evening, Tricia Avedano, 20 Van McLean, my address. I am speaking tonight to request a formal review of the leadership decisions surrounding the recent High School Musical. One individual was assigned 3 major roles: director, musical director, and technical director. Positions that each require significant time, expertise, and oversight. Concentrating all 3 responsibilities in one person created serious challenges for the production and, more importantly, contributed to an environment that many students experienced as stressful and emotionally difficult, and that's saying it lightly. Our extracurricular programs should be places where students feel supported, respected, and set up for success. I respectfully ask that the board to review how these assignments were made, evaluate the level of supervision provided, and consider establishing clearer guidelines to ensure that leadership responsibilities are appropriately distributed in future productions. And based on the experience reported by students and families during this production, I also urge the district to carefully reconsider future directing assignments to ensure that student well-being remains the top priority. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak this evening?
Hi, my name is Shelley Kleinberger. I live at 1 Fiddler's Green Spur. Last year, a number of students wrote to the Board of Education, and I'm assuming that you all get these emails. I have permission to pull quotes. One of the quotes was...
So we have to, Dennis, no names.
No names, absolutely not, no names.
Let me know, Dennis, if anything.
Yeah. Resorts to aggressive behaviors, one that brings about distress, sadness, and overall negativity, feels threatened, the loudest, most aggressive tone ever directed at me.
I think we're gonna need to stop this. This is, if these quotes are referring to any member of the staff, it would be improper at this point. If it is, if they're referring to something else, then.
This is most certainly referring to a member of the staff and letters that were received by the BOE, and there was no response to these students other than a form letter. Many of these things talk about harm, about their fear, about their aggression towards them, and there was no response. So my question to the BOE was there an obligated DASA filed? Because you have an obligation to do that?
We're gonna need to, if you have specific questions about specific staff members, you need to direct that specifically to.
We have done that and gotten no response.
Okay, you're gonna need to follow up with the superintendent. This forum is not, the public forum is not the place for to discuss specific staff members or any allegations towards specific staff members. You have to make those, make the allegation or your comments in writing to the superintendent, and he will follow up.
Great, I have done that. May I also ask, does the Board of Education have an obligation to submit a DASA report if any of these words have been submitted to them? Is there a mandated obligation to do that? And if so, can I receive, if I have written one of those letters, what the findings of that report have been?
Can you answer that?
As far as, well, I typically don't answer questions from the audience, but if the board would like me to provide a specific response.
You may want to use a microphone.
What's that?
You may want to use a microphone, so.
Okay. As far as DASA complaints generally, if you personally had made a DASA complaint, you should have received an outcome letter or an outcome determination letter. But more than that, that's just generically. I can't talk about any specifics of any particular incident.
My understanding is the Board of Education and the administration are mandated to file a DASA complaint if any of these things are flagged. Can you confirm if that's true or not? I believe that that's true in the state of New York.
As far as anytime I don't want to offer a legal opinion as far as whether anything any past event that you are referring to. Generically, if a DASA complaint is made, the district is obligated to investigate the DASA complaint and make a determination as to whether or not DASA was violated.
So what you're saying is it is not the board or the administration's obligation to file a DASA complaint if any of these words are flagged for them?
I'm not sure what you're referring to as by file, when you say file, but again, this is not the forum to get into a back and forth.
Great, thank you very much.
Would anybody else like to speak this evening? All right, so we're going to go back to our agenda, and we will now invite Dr. Allison Offerman Celentano to present the first glance budget review.
Okay, good evening. Thank you to the Board of Education and the Superintendent for this opportunity to present a first glance budget review. I also want to extend a thank you to the entire central administration, building administration, department leaders, and Joe Dragone for all of the hard work that they did to help get us here to this point. Tonight's presentation is an early, high-level look at the 26-27 budget. It's not a final proposal, but it's a starting point for discussion and feedback. Our focus is on aligning the budget with board goals while maintaining fiscal responsibility. We will continue to refine our work as we receive updated state aid and enrollment projections. This is also an opportunity for the board to share what they're looking for in our upcoming budget. This slide outlines the timeline for budget development, review, and adoption. The process is designed to allow for transparency, board input, and community engagement. The calendar ensures that we meet all statutory deadlines while allowing for thoughtful decision-making to occur. This calendar will also be at the end of the presentation as well. The budget is built directly around the board's established goals. These goals guide decisions related to programs, staffing, and fiscal management, and every major budget decision is evaluated through the lens of these priorities. And this ensures consistency between governance direction and financial planning. Our primary goal is to maintain and enhance student programs that support learning. We prioritize health, safety, and student well-being across all buildings. Financial transparency and accountability remain central to the process, and the budget reflects a balance between educational excellence and fiscal restraint. New York State requires school districts to build and adopt a balanced budget. We carefully align projected revenues with anticipated expenditures, which involves evaluating assumptions, monitoring cost drivers, and planning responsibly. Balance is achieved without compromising core instructional programs. We don't build or produce physical commodities. We invest in the growth of our future citizens. Please keep in mind as we go through this presentation that the majority of our expenditures, roughly 60 to 70%, are for personnel salaries and related benefits, which are contractually negotiated. The information that follows is a draft, as we're still obtaining pricing, including BOCE's cost. We're also typically waiting on the state to provide accurate projections for state aid. First, we're going to take time to examine the revenue side of the budget, which consists largely of the tax levy, governed by the New York State tax cap formula. A part of it is state aid and other sources of revenue such as pilots, which are payments in lieu of taxes. The tax cap is governed by a state-defined formula which has not changed since its inception in 2011. Governed by the basic principle that local governments and school districts may not adopt a budget that requires a tax levy that exceeds the prior year's levy by more than 2% or the rate of inflation, whichever is less, unless they override officially the tax levy limitation. Given exclusions, adjustments, and other nuances, the cap may not be 2%. Adjustments and exclusions can raise it. Low inflation can lower it. If a big business moves out of a district, everyone else's rate and bill could rise. Similarly, if a big business moves in, the opposite can happen. Equalization rates between towns within the same district can also fluctuate from year to year. So we are now in year 15 of the tax cap requirement, and right now, according to the State Office of the State Comptroller, for the purposes of setting the tax cap, they're using a CPI number or Consumer Price Index number of 2.63%, which means that for us, we are now set at 2% before exclusions. And this framework significantly influences revenue planning. It's also important to note that our tax-based growth factor is lower this year than last year. This year it's 1.0056. Last year it was 1.0091. And this lowers our potential levy by approximately $250,000. So this is a detailed look at the tax cap calculation as it stands right now. It's a preliminary calculation as we're still determining what we project to spend next year on capital projects. Our tax cap calculation has to be filed with the New York State Comptroller by March 1st, but we can still make modifications after that date if needed. So I'm going to walk you through the calculations, and as you can see, we begin with the tax levy from the prior year and multiply that by the tax-based growth factor, which I just explained. And that's provided annually by the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance. We then take the adjusted tax levy and add in the pilot payments received for this school year and subtract any tort or judgment exclusions from this year. So those are any expenditures that arise out of tort actions that exceed 5% of the total tax levied in the prior fiscal year. We then subtract the capital tax levy from this year to calculate the adjusted prior year tax levy, and we take this number and multiply it by the allowable levy growth factor, which is 2% for next year, subtract our estimated pilot payments for next year, and this results in a total levy limit before exclusions. And just to note that when you're looking at the tax cap calculation, when it says prior year, that actually means this school year, because it's the tax cap calculation for next year. So just in case, because that can be a little confusing when you're looking at this formula. So for the coming year, we don't have any tort exclusions. We have no teacher retirement system exclusions and no employee retirement system exclusions. So our only exclusion is related to principal and interest on debt service and any planned capital improvements in the budget. So the Board of Education has requested different levy scenarios starting with a 0% increase. So here we've presented each scenario, increasing the levy from this year's amount by 0.5% increments up to the preliminary maximum allowable tax levy of 2.6%. Our expenses would need to be adjusted to equal our planned revenue, depending on the levy the Board of Education chooses. Here is Cold Spring Harbor's tax levy history, and as you can see from the table, we've never pierced the cap. Over the last 14 years, we've levied up to the maximum 50%, so 7 years, and we've levied below the maximum allowable levy for the other 7 years. Roughly 7% of our revenue comes from state aid. We are what's called a Save Harmless district, which means that the state has initially allocated a 1% increase in our foundation aid. Most of our state aid comes from what's called expense-driven aid, which is aid that's provided based on what we're spending, either with BOCEs or on special education students here or in private school, or in specific categories such as textbooks, software, library, hardware, technology, transportation, and building projects. High tax aid in New York State is a specific category of state education funding provided to school districts where residents pay a relatively high percentage of their income in property taxes. This aid acts as a subsidy to help districts with high local tax efforts. However, it's been frozen for many districts, including ours, for quite some time. So about 5% of the revenue side of the budget is comprised of other revenue and funding sources. We earn interest income for revenue received, that's in the bank, revenue from lost books or Chromebook damage, and our pilots, which again are payments in lieu of taxes. We can also utilize fund balance and restricted reserves to help balance the revenue side of the budget with the expenditure side. So here is a summary of our reserve funds as they stand right now. I did not include the capital funds because we're not able to use them to offset any of our expenditures. And what you see are the restricted reserves, which are the employee benefits accrued liability, which can be used to pay for unused accumulated leave time, which is required by some of our contracts to employees. We have 2 reserves for the 2 retirement systems, employees and our teachers' retirement system, and those reserves can be used to offset the district-required contributions to those systems. We have a workers' compensation reserve, which can be used to pay for actual claims related to lost wages, medical expenses, loss of use awards, and self-insurance administrative costs. And we have an unemployment insurance reserve, which can be used to reimburse the state unemployment insurance fund for payments made to claimants when a school district elects the benefit reimbursement method, which we do subscribe to. We are also able to use unassigned fund balance, and this can all help to build the revenue side of the budget. If we use the suggested funds for this fiscal year, we will have approximately $26.6 million in reserves that we can allocate towards offsetting the budget. So now we'll move to the expense side of the budget, which is drafted for the board's consideration. We're currently projecting a 4.2% budget-to-budget increase, and that's with all of the requested expenditures included in the budget. Comparatively, we had a 1.58% budget-to-budget increase when you compare 24-25 with 25-26. Here it's important to note that the state aid row is not depicted accurately, as when we plan for budgets, we have to use the preliminary estimates. And when you're comparing budget to budget, you have to use those same preliminary estimates, even though when we look at our current state aid runs, the state has actually lowered the amount of aid that we're getting for this school year by about $23,000. So when you compare this slide to the state aid slide, you will see a slight difference, but remember we have to use the number that was used in budget planning when we compare budget to budget. So additionally, for the purposes of our discussion, we've utilized the same projected figure of fund balance and reserve use as this year for next year. So this results in a $1.5 million shortfall on the revenue side of the budget. Again, that's with every expenditure requested included in the budget. When you look at the budget lines that follow, please keep in mind that each year we endeavor to build a better budget. We make adjustments to maximize our expense-driven aid through our various budget lines, such as BOCES and textbooks. Each year, BOCES places more items under their umbrella, enabling districts to move items to a BOCES line for future earned revenue. We also make adjustments to create more accurate account codes. For example, we created supply and equipment account codes for our various departments that now have administrative leadership to provide more clarity about how these various items are utilized for our students. So over the next few slides, you're going to see our draft budget at a glance using the major account codes. The board has received much greater detail in last Friday's notes. So it's important to know that there may be adjustments. Again, I'll repeat, may be adjustments as we move forward, and this is a draft. When there's a small change, when there's a change to a small budget line like district clerk, you're going to see a large percentage change. And I'll review some of the significant increases in a later slide, and the department and building leaders will be providing more detail in future presentations. So here you see the budget codes for the Board of Education, district clerk and meetings, superintendent's office, legal, public information services, the business office, and the human resources office. On this slide, you see buildings and grounds, security, technology, professional memberships, and BOCES administrative costs. Here you see budget lines for curriculum and instruction, library, guidance, nurses, clubs and activities, special education, and athletics. And on this last side, you see transportation, district contributions for the employees' retirement system, the teachers' retirement system, Social Security, life and disability insurance, health and dental benefits, and other employee benefits. We also budget for workers' compensation, debt service on the bond, and tax anticipation notes, and transfer to capital. We wanted to provide the Board of Education with an overview of some of the bigger expense items that have been added to the budget for your consideration. Details about these budgetary requests will be provided by the various department and building leaders when they provide the board with their budget overview in future presentations. We have made an effort to reduce other budget lines based on the specificity requested from the administration team this year. And again, this was a tremendous amount of work from the administrative team to really go through their budgets and put those meaningful notes in to explain why they were requesting those particular expenditures. So you may notice that the total of bigger expense items is actually more than the current budgetary shortfall of $1.5 million. This is Eric's current listing of projects under transfer to capital, and we'll be discussing these projects, our updated building condition survey, and our proposed 5-year facilities plan at the next Capital and Facilities Committee meeting. So as promised, here are those major budget drivers that are currently in our budget. So the district meeting line has gone up considerably because Suffolk County has invested in new machines, and they are no longer supporting district school budget elections. So this is the last year that we can lease their machines, which we have elected to buy, and we have them on site now. But normally when we would use Suffolk County machines, that would come with support, it would come with programming the machines and training, and that's no longer available after this year. So we had to budget for an outside company to be able to provide those services to us if we elect to use the Suffolk County machines that are now in our possession and will remain on site. We're lucky, we are a district that also occupies part of Nassau County. So we may be able to use Nassau County machines, which would considerably lower the cost, but we have to budget for that anticipated expenditure, even though we may not need to use it. The personnel line will be explained in more detail on March 31st by Brian Taylor, but he is looking to modernize his department with new digital platforms, very exciting. The maintenance of plant line and the last line transfer to capital. Maintenance of plant, we're looking to invest in a couple of new vehicles, and transfer to capital, as you saw in one of the previous slides, we're looking at new planned projects, which may change, again, based on what's discussed at the committee meeting coming up, and that will be presented on March 17th by Eric. Central data processing is under the technology umbrella, and Rihanna's going to give us some more detail about that on March 17th, but we're always looking to maximize BOCE's aid. So you'll always see Rihanna's lines going up even if we're not investing in new technology, because we're always looking to move items into that expense-driven aid line. BOCE's administrative costs, we haven't actually gotten those yet. We've gotten predicted values, which are approximately a 15% increase. So that may change as we get better numbers over time. The next two are Kim's lines, curriculum development and supervision, and in-service training and instruction. And she's always looking to innovate with new programs, increase program support, and she'll provide us with more detail at the February 24th meeting. Transportation, as Mark shared, we are in year 2 of a 5-year contract, so we have contractual increases, and that more detail about that will be shared on March 31st. So we have now completed the first in our budget development series. The next one coming up is on February 24th, where we look forward to hearing from Goose Hill Elementary, Westside Elementary, Lloyd Harbor Elementary, athletics, and curriculum and instruction. That will start at 6 p.m., and we're looking forward to examining that detail for the board's consideration. So thank you, and I'll open it up to any questions at this time.
If I can, first I just want to thank you, Allison, and everyone for putting this in. It's a tremendous amount of work, and Allison, I think it's like literally day 30 for you here, taking over someone building part of the budget. We did something new this year. All of the entries for building the budget are in our Envision financial system, so it provides a lot of detail. It's a lot of work this year, but it will definitely help next year because all that information will be in there. As I mentioned earlier, just as we were coming in, not in the public session, our kindergarten registration is very strong, and it may even change already on the number of kindergarten sections we have. So this may have to change. And also in putting together the amount of work, paving and the like, the weather is wreaking havoc on lots of parking and streets, and like I'm sure you can see just the local streets. It's great we're going to get some thawing coming on, but unfortunately when it thaws during the day and then freezes back at night, it causes a lot of damage. And it's expensive, and we won't be the only ones in this boat. So I'm going to imagine that there will be some shifting going on, especially when we look to see what is under all this snow and ice. Again, thank you, Allison, and then questions from the board. Or statements.
So if I follow that, based on what we want to do, even if we go up to the tax cap, we're still not there, right? We don't have enough money?
That's correct. If we have everything that's currently in the budget, if that remains, we have a $1.5 million shortfall.
Deficit, right?
And that's if we use the same planned use of our restricted reserves and our fund balance to help balance
Mark, I
out
think
the
it's more to
revenue
say,
side.
it's pretty much, I'm sorry, Allison, I stepped on you there.
No, that's
I thought
fine.
you were done. It's like pretty much as we had said at the last year, everyone's wish list. There are some things we could put off, some things we may be able to do out of with construction money, but this is the wish list is here.
Okay. Because I gotta say, I'm very surprised because last meeting we approved the money, 50% rebates on trips because we had the money for it. We don't have the money for it. I said we don't have, make sure we have the money, and we don't have the money.
No, this is next year's budget. We absolutely
Oh, for
have the
this
money in
year?
this year's
Yeah.
budget. And we've budgeted for part of what's
Next
in
year.
the, part of
That's
what's
what-
in the expenditure side is 50% funding of the trips. So we absolutely have the money.
All right.
What we've done is we've done a lot of work to try to really budget for the expenditures that we think that we need and that we hope and wish for. But as everybody knows, you don't always get everything that you hope and wish
So,
for.
what, if we have the money this year, but then we have a shortfall next year, why can't we pull forward some of those expenses?
We don't know at this point where we're going to end up overall with our fund balance, so we are going to be examining that. And we may be able to put money into reserves at the end of the year, but that happens after the budget has been adopted. So we can certainly pledge money from reserves and fund balance, projecting that forward. But if you look at last year's budget presentation at this time, we had a $2.7 million shortfall in the initial stages of the budget because we do an all-in
Right.
on the expenditure side, and then we make those decisions about what we are and are not
Yeah,
going to
every year
include.
in this meeting, we're told we don't have enough money and we're going to possibly have to pierce the tax cap. And then by the next meeting, we have enough money, and then like 3 meetings later, we have extra money. So I wouldn't panic yet.
Does that sound right? I mean, that's every district, or do we do it special?
Every district does it differently, but we wanted to present a budget to the Board of Education with everybody's wish list included, knowing, again,
Okay.
that not everything was going to remain in the budget. We wanted to present it for the board's consideration and allow the various department leaders and building leaders to explain why they were looking to add these items to the budget. And then we would have to make the decisions to make sure that we presented a balanced budget to the voters.
So, and then we did this process last year, and I was concerned that we spent the vast majority, hours and hours on approximately $2 million of the $81 million budget. We spent all of that. We never questioned whether 79 or 80 million is being spent properly. You're new here. I mean, is there any reflection? We just take the current budget, slap on some new projects, and then figure out how much we're going to tax people? Is that how it's done?
No, we actually asked the administrators to build their budget from the bottom up. So they put all of their requests into our digital system, which is called Envision, and we asked them to provide detail about why they were looking to budget for those planned expenditures. So we actually approached it quite differently this year, and Mr. Monastero and before I got here, Mr. Dragon and then myself, we conducted extensive budget meetings with each of the building and department leaders to ask questions about each of their line items so that we could make sure that we were budgeting with clarity, or as much clarity as you can, because there's always going to be unanticipated costs.
A absolute sea change in presentation from last year to this year is you have every single request has been shared. In the past couple of years, there was a slideshow with pictures on it. We went back to what was done in the past, different that is electronic, but every single request, we were here last year and there was a request to, what is your dream, what are you asking for? And this is, what is your dream, what are you asking for? It was asked to do that, and that's what's in here, and it's the dream. It would be great to say the dream came in at flat, but it didn't. There are costs, there are, as we said, there are contractual costs we have here, and there is no, we understand there's not everything here, but it was asked for you to see it all, and then to have a decision on what we keep and what we don't keep, and that's what you see here. And-
We
Please.
did provide us with an expenditure sheet that was broken down pretty extensively. like postage and copies and, so kind of where that, where those yearly costs are.
Right. Now, we're asking the administrators to ask for things, but they're not responsible to really determine if they're getting the right price for things. That would be the business office, right? So I'm just trying to figure out, do we actually go back and look and see if we're getting the most, or there's costs in there that shouldn't be. It's different from a wish list. It's just, are we being efficient in our purchasing of services, of the way we contract? Like, is there a process that does that?
So when we ask each building and department leader to build their budget, we actually asked for a pretty detailed specificity in what they thought the costs were going to be for what they were asking for. And so you don't see a lot of round numbers in the expenditure because our administrators worked really hard to cost out as accurately as possible what they thought it would be next year. Now, we always have to be a little careful with that because we want to budget as closely as we can in reality, but not under, because then we wouldn't have enough money for what they were budgeting for.
And there most certainly will be estimates for fuel oil, gas. Like, we don't know whether a barrel of oil will be a year from now, what a gallon of gas will be. So there are definitely some estimates. We look at what we spent over previous years. This has been a particularly cold year, so it's going to be more fuel used to keep our buildings warm during the school year. So there are some estimates. And would you say if you think it's going to be, the past years we spent $45,000 in oil for a particular building, this usually a number, you want to make sure you have some little extra because you can't run out. You got to have enough oil. You need to have enough gas. And it's not an exact science, but we provided every single item. And some of this is getting pricings for stuff that we won't purchase for 6 months, for a year. I know, working particularly with technology, the items we have to wait for pricing, we purchase from BOCES. We purchase from BOCES because we get state aid on it. We don't have it yet, so we give an estimate on what that increase will be. And then as these come in, we make adjustments as we know. That's what we can do.
And the price is better from BOCES when you take the state aid back out? Is that the...
Definitely.
It is, right? It's not like we're not overpaying and getting money back, but could be getting a better deal somewhere else.
I would say on net,
yeah,
we are working at, am I correct, we're roughly 50% back on BOCES?
Yes, it
Yes.
Yeah, I
depends
remember
on the
you saying
closer,
this.
Yeah.
but yes.
So
yeah.
we're roughly, we spend 1,000, we're roughly getting 50% of that back, so
Okay.
it works out.
Great.
Right, minus the administrative costs, because BOCES has to have, there's a fee. But we're still getting a better deal because we then get that aid back the next year. It's like an investment in the revenue side of the budget. And we do get really good pricing through BOCES because they offer the product in bulk to their districts, and you can cross-contract with other BOCES. So it's in a vendor's best interest to offer a discounted price to BOCES given the volume. And speaking of technology, that side of the budget is still being worked on because the BOCES pricing is rolling in right now. So that first expenditure report that you saw in Friday Notes with the 17 sheets within the spreadsheet, broken down by department and building, some of that is going to change and actually go down because we're now receiving the BOCES more accurate pricing for next year.
And there have been years where things have gone down, things have come up, but they tend to even out. We always hope they're down by the end, but we don't know.
Well, the new building report could be a brace for impact, type of situation.
Absolutely.
How much did, in facilities, we didn't have, I think it was less than $2 million, was it, for projects next year?
Right, we have projects right now that are in transfer to capital, and I do really anticipate that some of those are going to change based on our upcoming meeting and Michael Mark's analysis of what is going to be most important now. But also, we have money in the capital fund, in the H fund, that has specific projects that have been delineated and the voters have approved. So even though you may not see the money in the budget, There may be items that we can take care of from the building condition survey through voter-approved projects that have a broad umbrella, like if it says heating, ventilation, AC. So if anything that Michael Mark comes back with that is under that umbrella, we may be able to do some of those projects with existing money that the voters have already allocated from previous budgets.
$8 million reserve from that pool, you're saying? Is there-
The capital reserve, so that there's different reserves that we have capital reserves, and right now we're not planning, and this could change, but we can always vote to allocate money from those reserves.
And
That's capital reserve 3 and capital reserve 5, and we have approximately $10.4 million in those two reserves, with the ability to continue to fund capital reserve 5. Capital reserve 3, we can't fund that anymore, that the timeline has run out. And we will do a whole budget a budget presentation on capital projects. But in the H fund right now, which is the fund that holds the capital money, again, that the voters have already approved for projects, including the 2019 bond, we have approximately $11.5 million sitting in there right now. So even though you may not see the money here, we're in pretty good shape, as far as trying to take care of some capital work for next year.
And we anxiously wait for that report from Michael Mark on what needs to be done.
By the next facilities meeting?
Yes, that the facilities meeting, we picked that date because he said he would be done with his report at that time, which I believe, yes, is
It's right,
the
it's
23rd.
23rd, yes.
Of Feb, yeah. Very good. All right, so that'll be done by then, and we'll know where we stand for the next meeting. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions for Alice? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison.
All right. We will now move to committee reports and the work that has occurred since our last board meeting. The policy and technology committees met after our last public meeting. I was present at the policy committee meeting, so I will share out what happened then. The meeting was held on January 30th, during which several policy updates were reviewed and discussed. The recommendation of council, we updated policy 2121, the board member qualifications to include new language for the state permitting convicted felons the opportunity to hold a board seat. We've also drafted a new policy, policy 8121.2, related to automated external defibrillators, AEDs. The policy ensures that the district will provide and maintain AED equipment for use during a cardiac emergency at approved curricular and extracurricular activities held at district facilities in accordance with the cardiac emergency response plan contained in the district's school safety plan. In addition, revisions were made to policy 8505, charging meals and other food items. Updated language was necessary because the previous policy included provisions to prevent students receiving free lunch from being shamed in front of peers. As school lunch is now free for all students, this language is no longer applicable. Finally, we updated policy 8520, free meal services. Changes were made to reflect that applying for the free meal service is no longer required. The revised policy outlined the district's participation criteria for the federally funded meal program and the associated state data reporting requirements. And I believe those policies are on the first reading tonight, right, Joe?
That's correct.
Can I ask a question? And maybe I'm not allowed to ask this question, but there's a policy that says that if you are a convicted felon, you can run for a board seat. Is that something we can push back on as a board? I mean,
It's part of, it's a required change to the civil code, so I don't think we would be able to push back on it.
can you look into that a little bit for us?
Sure.
I mean, that makes me feel like it's something we should dig into a little bit more, maybe.
Sure, the conventional, but absolutely, I'm happy to look at it and see if there's anything.
Okay. Thank you.
So we would perhaps when I did the first read.
Yeah.
All right, turn it over
Tech
to
committee? All right. The tech committee met on January 22nd. Heather was there also. We met in the old computer lab in the high school library that's now been converted into more of a meeting space. which is great. We discussed elementary student access to programs like ClassLink, which is basically a platform that has different apps on it that the kids use. I had no idea about it, and it's pretty great. And so Dr. Fulton has been working on removing different apps, adding apps, as the students need them. We also talked about the larger options for new Chromebooks, 11 inches versus 14 inches. And it turns out that for 14 inches, the cost would be close to $1,000 per device. So we probably aren't going to do that. We discussed different options for the cases. They think, kids think they're really bulky. They have to be bulky because we use a stylus, and the kids like using the stylus on their computer. There's also an option, a lot of kids can go to the lab and get a mouse. So some kids use a mouse on their Chromebooks, which also I didn't know. We also talked about the tech plan for 2026. We talked about goal number 3. This is a tricky one. We will need to develop a system to evaluate the effectiveness of our technology professional development plan. We reviewed a few different methods, and we brainstormed ways for Cold Spring Harbor to provide technology professional development and collect data to evaluate the effective integration and use of technological programs. We also talked about the value of having teacher mentors to work together by modeling ways to apply new technologies in the classroom. And that was pretty much it. Our next meeting will be February 25th.
Thank you, Lisa. We now move to approval of minutes on page 2. January 13, 2026 minutes. Can I have a first? Lisa, a second. Alex, any questions? All in favor? We now move to personnel recommendations to the superintendent. We will take terminations, resignations, and all appointments on page 2 through 6 as a slate. May I have a first? Bruce, a second. Alex, any questions? All in favor? We now move to accept the donation from NYSER for Schematities and Cold Spring Harbor Educational Foundation for the 2 grants, Don't Press Send program and What's in Your Box, Introduction to Woodworking, and the corresponding budget adjustments on pages 6 through 8. We have a first. Lisa, a second. Alex, any questions? All in favor? We now move to business recommendations. We will take budget transfers and claims auditor's reports on page 8 through 9 as a slate. We have a first. Alex, a second. Lisa, any questions?
Just, can we go through the transfers for a sec? So 19,000 stove and oven repair, that's straightforward, right? We have a broken stove and oven in some school.
Oh, refrigerators and 2 stoves. Eric?
When I saw it on me, that's the first I saw it, because no one from the kitchen said anything to me
I'll
about
have to
it.
get back to you.
Okay. And then, what's this athletic uniform transfer? We're buying new uniforms?
Yes, like the transfer to buy new uniforms?
Yeah, what's the question?
Which teams? What? Just curious.
It's baseball, because the brand new coach wanted to start him off that way, and the boys lacrosse uniforms, most of them, that was damaged. They were damaged and reconditioned on the way back, and it's for 5 years, that's why.
Thank you.
Also girls lacrosse and
Well,
wrestling.
yes, but those were already built in to the number.
It's
from
in the paper. I'm just clarifying for the board.
Wrestling's
that-
already had, because we needed the singlets for ALS, and so it all had to do with the same transfer.
Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor? We will now take additional business matters on pages 9 through 10 as a slate. May I have you first? Lisa, a second. Bruce, any questions? All CSE and CPC approval and contracts on page 10. May I have a first? Alex, a second. Lisa, any questions? All in favor? We now move to other matters on pages 11 through 13. May I have a first? Lisa, a second. Bruce? All right, any questions?
Good question. So these are adoptions of textbooks? Are these new textbooks or just replacements?
So this is for APC calculus. This is a brand new.
Of a new course, right.
That was this year. So we were using an outdated program based on the collegial circles that we had held here in Cold Spring Harbor. We had an AP calculus collegial circle. The recommendations for various textbooks were then explored. We held a textbook committee that evaluated 3 of the primary books that other area teachers were recommending, and this is the one that we went with.
So the board was shown the math textbook. These we don't do, I'm just curious, why did we look at them?
It went to the board.
Oh, this one?
Yes.
We were shown
the
these?
copy was, yes, and the copy was placed in Joe's office, and then I linked the textbook review to the credit notes.
Completely missed that. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I can send you the pre-calc book if you want
No,
to brush up on pre-calc.
Well,
Yeah.
I probably
So-
wouldn't, that's not my thing.
So what textbook were they using previously?
So they were using a pre-calculus book, but it was not based on AP scope and sequence, and it was a little bit outdated. They wanted, more, project-based, so there were some other additional problems that aligned more directly with the AP scope and sequence that they would be feeding into for calculus.
So we need,
There's an AP pre-calculus text.
right, there were some issues with the rollout of the AP pre-calculus class. A lot of students dropped the class, and a new regular pre-calculus class was started. Do you think the textbooks might be part of the, maybe that's not even a question for you to answer on the new, but, okay.
I don't believe that was, that was not the issue.
Okay.
But I think that we wanted to make sure we had a book that really matched the scope and sequence of what's going on in this direct one. So I don't attribute the two, I think they're two separate.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Oh, I just wanted to point out, this is all in other matters, right? That this also, it includes our regionalization opt-out resolution as well. Yeah.
All in favor? Okay. We have 4 policies on the agenda for first read. The first one of which is 2121. So I'm going to take a motion now to take that separately. Can I have a first? Alex, a second. Kate, any questions? All in favor? Okay. So I'll take, I guess what I do, take a motion to waive the first reading of that first policy, 2121.
Sure.
Can I have a first? Bruce, a second. Lisa, any questions?
So we're taking it separately because we're requesting that we take another look at it, right? Before we
Before it moves forward.
move it forward, right?
Yes, that was my
Yeah.
understanding. So, you can move to, if you want to, table it, you can do that.
I'd prefer to table it, I think,
Okay.
yeah.
I said the wrong thing.
Thank you,
All right,
yeah.
so let me do another.
Yeah, because
motion.
waiving the first read, I think,
Yeah.
moves it to the next step as opposed to tabling it, which, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to have a motion to table policy 2121. May I have the first? Alex, second. Bruce, any questions? All in favor? Okay. Now I'm going to move on to the 3 other policies, 8505, 8520, and 8121.2. May I have a motion to waive the reading of those policies? First, Alex, second. Lisa, any questions? All in favor? Okay. Next, there are two policies, 2342 and 9620, and a regulation 9140.1R on for a second read and adoption on pages 13 and 14. May I have a motion to waive the reading of these policies and adopt? First, Alex. Second, Mark. Any questions?
What, can you just hit the highlights, what was changed?
Let me see if me and Lisa can remember. Now you're going back further in time. We have the,
Wait, so which one are we talking about?
we're looking at policies that were second reading.
Is that policy 9620?
Yes, that's one of them.
Child abuse in an educational
Yep.
setting?
Yep, the first, yes.
So it looks like the only thing that was changed was, that report of allegations would be made to the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, because that's the name of our that's the name of our administrator as opposed to the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services and Human Resources.
Okay.
And then at the end, pursuant to the law, we changed, we took out this section. I don't know,
What
maybe
did we take out?
Right, and we added that the president of the, or it was added that the president of the board would be notified by the assistant superintendent if an allegation, for human resources, if an allegation is made against the superintendent of schools.
So this is, so we always have this policy, 9620,
Yes.
child
Yes,
abuse in an
just-
educational setting.
Yeah, just an update
Updated changes.
that are required.
So the board recognizes that children have the right to an educational setting that does not threaten their physical and emotional health and development. Child abuse by school personnel is volunteering.
I mean, we can request it.
I kind of want to read it. I kind of don't want to waive this.
Can you read it out loud, please?
I kind of want to read this. I don't want to table this.
Just want to go back to the policy first read.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your comments 3 policies over on the actual 4 policies. You set aside 2121 for
Yeah.
table
Right.
for me to look into for
Right.
modifications. But I only see 2 other policies and you mentioned 3.
I think there's 3 on here. There's the charging school meals, the free meals, I'm going on my computer, and the AED for the first read. And then for the second read, I said there was 2 policies and a regulation. That's just the wording I was given, but I,
Yeah, sorry. So, I'm only seeing 2
We
policies.
updated one today, remember we had left
in
off.
the, under, which one, I'm sorry, we're talking about the first read
Just the
now?
first
First
read.
read.
Just
yeah.
first
Looking
read.
at the first read, and I'm only
Yes.
seeing 2
You said
policies of
4
the actual.
8505, We have-
8520, and 8121.
We have 4 on this.
Okay, you have it,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that it's clear.
On the agenda that was in the back of the room, I have 4.
Perfect, thank you. Sorry.
So, going back to this, so I took did I take a motion, no, we're in the questions section. So, all right, so then, how do we do this, when we want to read this, Dennis? So, all in favor of doing it without a first read, Kate wants me to read the 9140.1R in its entirety. Do you want?
9620.
No, 9620. Do you want me to read all 3, or do I have to make a motion to
You
separate?
can take a
them?
motion to waive the reading and then the board can decide. If the board votes to waive the reading, then the reading will be waived. However, if board members want to hear the policy read, then.
I'm gonna have to take it individually.
You have to just take, you're taking a motion to waive the reading. If the motion fails, then you have to read the policy.
So who's in favor of reading the policies in their entirety?
All of them?
No,
Just do them
no.
individually.
Do
Say
individually.
A.
Right, so then I will take a motion to waive the reading of policy, starting with 2342. May I have the first? Mark, second. Lisa, any questions? All in favor? Okay, now moving on to regulation 9140.1R. A motion to waive this reading. Can I have a first? Mark, a second. Bruce, any questions? All in favor? Okay. I'm going to take a motion to waive the reading of policy 9620. Can I have a first? This is is a motion to waive, so if someone's in support of waiving the reading, it would make a motion saying. So anyone?
So
No.
we make a motion and vote against it if we want it in
Well,
red,
if
right?
nobody, if the motion doesn't go through, we have not to.
Oh, okay.
To waive it. So does anyone want to move to waive it? No.
No.
Okay. So then, now can I just read it?
Yes.
The Board of Education recognizes that children have the right to educational setting that does not threaten their physical and emotional health and development. Child abuse by school personnel and school volunteers violates this right and therefore is strictly prohibited. Allegations of child abuse by school personnel and school volunteers shall be reported in accordance with requirements of Article 23B of the Education Law. Required reporters. Any person holding any of the following positions shall be required to promptly report written and oral allegations of child abuse by an employee or volunteer in an educational setting. School administrator, teacher, school nurse, school guidance counselor, school psychologist, school social worker, other school personnel required to hold a teaching or administrative license or certificate, school board member. For purposes of this policy, persons holding these positions shall be referred as the required reporters. Definitions. Administrator or school administrator shall mean a principal of or the equivalent title in a public school, charter school, or board of cooperative educational services, or other chief school officer. Educational setting means the building and grounds of the school, the vehicles provided by directly or by contract, the school for the transportation of students to and from school buildings, field trips, co-curricular and extracurricular activities, both on and off school grounds, all co-curricular and extracurricular activity sites, any other location where direct contact between the employee and volunteer and a child has allegedly occurred. Child means a person under the age of 21 enrolled in a school. Child abuse means any of the following acts committed in an educational setting by an employee or a volunteer against a child: intentionally or recklessly inflicting physical injury, serious physical injury, or death, or intentionally or recklessly engaging in conduct that creates a substantial risk of physical injury, serious physical injury, or death, or any child sexual abuse is prohibited by sections 130 or 235 of the penal law, or the commission or attempted commission against a child of the crime of disseminating indecent materials to minors pursuant to Article 235 of the penal law. Employee means any person who is receiving compensation from a school district. Additionally, for the purpose of this policy, one whose duties involves direct student contact and is receiving compensation from any person or entity that contracts with the school to provide transportation services to children, or is an employee of a contracted service provider or worker placed within the school under a public assistance employment program pursuant to Title 9B of the Article 5 of the Social Securities Law, or by such services performed by such person involved direct student contact. Law enforcement authorities mean any officer or office of municipal sheriff's or division of the state police department. Parent means either both of a child's parents or other persons legally responsible for the child. School generally means any school district, public school, charter school, non-public school board of cooperative educational series or special act school district and additional entities as defined by section 1125(10) of educational law. Volunteer means any person other than an employee who has direct student contact and provides services to a school or school district which involve direct student contact and who provides services to any person or entity which contracts with the school to provide transportation services to children. Reporting requirements. In any case where a written or oral allegation of child abuse by an employee or volunteer in an educational setting is made to a required reporter, the required reporter shall promptly complete the required state education department report form, personally delivered to the principal of the school in which the child abuse allegedly occurred. If the allegation involves a child who was allegedly abused by an employee or volunteer of a school in another school district, the required reporter must promptly forward the report form to the superintendent of the district of attendance and the superintendent of the school district where the abuse allegedly occurred if different. If an allegation is made to a school bus driver employed by a person or an entity that contracts with a school to provide transportation services to children, that a child had been subjected to child abuse by an employee or a volunteer in an educational setting, such driver shall promptly report to his or her supervisor. If an allegation is made to a supervisor of a school bus driver employed by a person or entity that contracts with the school to provide transportation services to children that a child has been subjected to child abuse by an employee or volunteer in an educational setting. Such supervisor shall promptly complete a written report on the attached Form 9620-E.1 and shall personally deliver it to the school district superintendent employed by the school district where the child abuse occurred. If an allegation is made which involves a school that is not a school district or public school, the appropriate school administrator or administrators, in addition to any appropriate superintendent of schools, shall be notified of the allegation. Upon receiving a written report, the principal shall determine whether there is reasonable suspicion to believe that an act of child abuse has occurred by an employee or volunteer. In those circumstances, when the superintendent receives the written report directly, he or she will be responsible for making a reasonable suspicion determination. In any case where the employee the allegation is being made against is the superintendent or the administrator, the report of such allegation shall be made to the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. The President of the Board of Education will be notified by the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources if an allegation is made against the Superintendent of Schools. If the principal/superintendent determines there is a reasonable suspicion to believe that an act of child abuse has occurred, he or she shall promptly notify the parent of the alleged child victim, assuming that the parent is not the person who originally reported the alleged abuse, that an allegation of child abuse in an educational setting has been made, and promptly provide the parent with a written statement setting forth parental rights, responsibilities, and procedures prepared in accordance with the regulations of the Commissioner of Education. If the person making the allegation of abuse other than the child or the child's parents, the principal/superintendent shall contact the person making the report to learn the source and basis for allegation. The principal shall also promptly provide a copy of the written report to the superintendent and send a copy to the appropriate law enforcement authorities. In no event shall the principal delay in sending the report to the law enforcement because of its inability to contact the superintendent. The superintendent shall send to the Commissioner of Education any written report forwarded to the local law enforcement authorities where the employee or volunteer alleged to have committed an act of child abuse holds a certification or license issued by the department. Rights of employees and volunteers. Any employee or volunteer against whom an alleged allegation of child abuse has been made and against whom the district intends to take adverse action shall be entitled to receive a copy of the report and to respond to the allegations. In addition, such persons are entitled to seek disclosure of reports involving them under the Freedom of Information Law. Confidentiality. All reports, photographs, and other written material submitted pursuant to this policy in Article 23-B of the Education Law shall be confidential and may not be redisclosed except to law enforcement authorities involved in investigating the alleged abuse or except as expressly authorized by law or pursuant to a court-ordered subpoena. The principal and superintendent shall exercise reasonable care to prevent unauthorized disclosure. Willful disclosure of a written record required to be kept confidential to a person not authorized to receive or review such record is a Class A misdemeanor. Penalties. Willful failure of an employee to prepare and submit a written report of an alleged child abuse required by Article 23-B of the Education Law shall be a Class A misdemeanor. Willful failure of any principal or superintendent to submit a written report of alleged child abuse to an appropriate law enforcement authority as required by 23-B of the Education Law shall be a Class A misdemeanor. In addition, the Commissioner of Education may, following an administrative determination, impose a civil penalty of up to $5,000 on any administrator who fails to submit a report of child abuse to an appropriate law enforcement authority. The law further prohibits any principal or superintendent from agreeing to withhold from the appropriate law enforcement authorities, the superintendent or the Commissioner of Education, or appropriate allegation of child abuse in an educational setting on the part of any employee or volunteer as required by law in return for the resignation or voluntary suspension of the alleged perpetrator. Violation of this prohibition can result in a Class E felony charge with civil penalty up to $20,000. Record retention. Any report of child abuse by an employee or volunteer that does not result in criminal conviction shall be expunged from the records kept by the district with respect to the subject of the reports after 5 years from the date the report was made or an earlier time as determined by the superintendent. Training. The superintendent shall be responsible for establishing and implementing an ongoing basis a training program for all current and new required reporters on the procedures required under Article 23-B. The The program shall include, at a minimum, information regarding physical and behavioral indicators of the child abuse and maltreatment, reporting requirements, including but not limited to when and how a report must be made, what other actions the reporter can, and should take, the legal protections afforded to reporters, and the consequences for failing to report, and any other elements as specified in the Commissioner's regulations. Further, all persons employed on or after July 1st, 2019 as a school bus driver employed by any person or entity that contracts with the school to provide transportation services to children shall be required to complete 2 hours of course worker training from the approved provider. Regarding the identification and reporting of child abuse and maltreatment, the course work or training shall include information regarding physical and behavioral indicators of child abuse and maltreatment, reporting requirements including but not limited to when and how a report must be made, what other actions the reporter can and should take, the legal protections afforded reporters, and the consequences for failing to report. Each employee in such title shall provide the school administrator of the school with documentation showing that he or she completed the required training. In addition, each school bus driver shall provide such contracting person or entity with documentation showing that he or she completed the required training. The department shall be authorized to request such records on a periodic basis and may publish a list of persons or schools who are not in compliance with the subdivision on its website. The course worker training required by this section shall not apply to those persons already required to undergo course worker training regarding the identification and reporting of child abuse and maltreatment pursuant to the law. References: Education Law Sections 1125 to 1133 of the Penal Law, Sections 130, 235, 263, 8 NYCRR, Section 100.2, HH, Reporting of Child Abuse in an Educational Setting, Appeal of SS 42 EDR 273 from 2003, adoption date November 8th, 2011, amended date January 14th, 2020. That's it. So, I read it, yeah. Motion to approve it? Okay. So I'm going to take a motion to approve this policy. Mayor first. Mark, second. Lisa, any questions? All in favor? Okay. The agenda includes financial reports on page 14, and these reports are for informational purposes. No vote is necessary. If needed, Dr. Hoffman Solentano will answer any questions from the Board of Education and Public. Feel free to call her office. We now continue with our second audience to visitors. Would anybody like to come up to speak?
Hello. Scott Kleinberger, live at 150 Green Spur. My question is well, I guess I'm wondering about process here. I've heard a lot of policy today about emotional support dogs, safety with doors being closed, this policy that was just read about abuse, child safety. And my question is this: when this board and other administrators in this school district receive letters about child safety, is it not the responsibility of the board and the administrators to look into these things? I would say probably yes. And I would probably say that you as a board, responsible people, have probably done that. So my question is this: what is the follow-through, the appropriate follow-through by the board, never mind the public, but for the people that are involved in these things? But as a board, what is your responsibility to see something through? If this board gets messages from the constituency and I don't expect this board to be going into the school and doing other people's jobs. Everyone has their role. There's people that are supposed to be doing certain things, but you have an oversight responsibility. So my question is this: when something as serious as child safety gets put on the table, what happens next? Where is your follow-through? And how much follow-through do you do? And when someone comes back to you maybe with a a message that said that was nothing? Is there a report that gets done? Do you vet the report? Do you look into it? How deep do you go? Because we're talking about some serious issues here. They were alluded to before. And I know firsthand that I don't feel from the feedback that I've received that these issues were taken seriously. Because there was no feedback to me or my family.
Sir, I just have to interrupt you. If you're speaking about anything specific, you're going to need to say that.
So I'll keep it a little bit general. I think you got the idea of what I was saying before. Where is the follow-through? Who follows through? What happens if you get an answer back and that answer back turns out to be incorrect? Who gives you that answer? How do you find out it's incorrect? And what happens to the people that gave you incorrect information? There's people that have a role here, and are they doing their job? And did you do your job? I don't know. I can't ask you that question about something specific, but you're all listening to me, and I think you understand the seriousness of issues that we're talking about child safety. So that's my question. And it's like, you know, I know I'm not going to get an answer back. This is just me, you know, speaking to you, and it's not a two-way conversation. But I think that there's some things that have to get talked about here and how this loop gets closed. Because I heard a lot about dogs, not about my kids. Thank you.
General response that the board, when we receive emails, we do respond to them, or where appropriate, refer it to an appropriate administrator. So I can only answer generally. Anybody else have any other questions?
Good evening, Adrian Benvenuti, 2 Coon Hollow Road, Lloyd Harbor. First, thank you. Those are some really nice things this young lady said about the West Side School show, and it sounds like it's going to be a really good show, and very much looking forward to that. Also, timely discussion about the new policy and the topic of harassment and abuse of students by faculty. I want to ask some, actually directed to you, questions on process. No specifics, just process. If a teacher is hired, and then students and parents submit emails to the school and district administration and to the Board of Ed about abuse by this teacher, children. Again, it's generic, totally generic process question, so I'm well within my rights. Then the teacher receives tenure. Then the teacher increases verbal abuse on students. Then the teacher adds physical abuse to multiple students on top of that. Still generic questioning.
Sorry.
Yes, it's generic. Then, what is the district's responsibility to the general set of students, the children, who were the recipients of said abuse? And those other students that may have been a party to the abuse from the outside and themselves feeling almost abused or harassed because they're uncomfortable with speaking out about it. Possibly they were abused themselves but did not feel safe enough to disclose that abuse. What does the district do to protect the children so that they feel that they are in a safe environment if such a situation were to occur?
How can I
it's hard for me
There's no
because
real
the
way to answer
students-
that question. It's not, you know.
Absolutely there is.
Sure, there's no, in this forum, this is not the.
Should the students not receive some sort of a psychological,
What's the forum?
a trauma response from the district to support the students that were potentially abused by staff?
It's difficult to answer a question like that without being able to get into specifics of the
What's the policy?
situation.
What's the policy? We just talked about this
It's
great
hard to
policy,
know.
which I totally agree with.
All the policies that touch on this, there's a few.
Right.
You could look it up.
The board needs to consider the comments of the visitors, have a discussion, and then, you know, come to the appropriate answer, and then respond. This is not the forum for a back and forth between comments of the visitors and the board. So, you know, the visitors can pose their questions, residents can pose their questions, and the board can take it under advisement, and then at the appropriate time can respond. But to get into an off-the-cuff back and forth.
I don't want a back and forth. I want a simple answer on district response to children of abuse by staff, if such a thing were to occur.
Yeah, I don't think I can give a response unless I have the opportunity to look into the policies and give you a complete answer.
We'd like to know what
Take
the
it under
forum is,
advisement.
where we can have that forum, and we'd also like a definition of what
Come to the
abuse is.
microphone. You can't be heard.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I was saying she could come, someone from the audience was speaking, the microphones do not pick it up, so she'd have to come up.
So just within my 3 minutes, very valid point, because I think it is important to note that abuse under New York State law and laws in general does include both verbal and mental and behavioral abuse, in addition to physical abuse. That is something that needs to be noted in case there were chances that verbal abuse was not reported as per policy. But that is something that everyone here should understand. Verbal abuse is abuse. It is a form of bullying and harassment covered by law.
So do we have a policy on,
Yeah,
we're just
we need
saying
policy.
generally, what's the next, I guess maybe he's asking like, what's the next step? Like, what's our policy to show them what their rights are if this were
I would
to
have to, I just don't know it off,
Sure,
what the
I
policies
think
are.
what would be prudent if we were to have, consider the comments of the visitors, the audience of visitors, have a discussion in executive session, and then have it prepare an appropriate response, and then Heather can provide that response at the next meeting. It is often better to take these comments from the residents, consider them, and have an appropriate response. Really can be.
But we can do it before the next board meeting, I'm assuming.
Sure, and that can be communicated to any, you know, if the gentleman would like to give his information to the superintendent, I'm sure the superintendent can contact him back before the next board meeting. But to engage into a rapid fire answer questions off the cuff is probably not.
Not with rapid fire, just a simple answer. Thank you very, very much. I do appreciate that. And yes, timeliness is an important thing, you know, especially if there are students that would potentially, let's say, take their own lives because of the abuse that they succumb to. Right, we do want to make sure that there's some policy in place so that we can quickly respond because we already have the playbook built. Thank you very much for your time.
Would anyone else like to speak tonight?
Shelley Williams, Kleinberger again, 1 Fiddler's Green Spur. I have 2 children in the high school. I know as board members, you've taken an oath to protect our children, and I know that you take that very seriously. I hope that you never feel the need to go to the school every day and stand in the gap to protect your child in the school as I have for the last week. I hope that you never have to feel what I have felt and heard from my children. And I hope that if you were ever in this situation, that the people in charge will stand up for them and do their job and stand in the gap that the children aren't forced to advocate for for themselves, that you do your job. The kids need you to do your job. They are hurting. They have been put through so much. And I have been writing letters for a year and a half. And at this point, all I can say is, you are complicit, because it has only gotten worse.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? All right. This is the second discussion section of our agenda. I open the floor to any other discussion items from members of the Board of Education.
I kind of want to just go back to the DASA question. Can the board file a DASA if it didn't actually happen to their child, like just as a board member?
So, ideally, I would prefer to give advice to the board in executive session. To answer your question, DASA is an independent staff. The obligations under DASA are independent of any particular person filing. So, I can touch that.
Any other items for discussion? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn or to executive session for purposes of personnel and legal? We have a first, Alex, second, Mark, all in favor? All right, that's the board has returned from executive session, no action was taken. May I have the motion to return to public session first? Alex, second. Mark, all in favor? Could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting, a first? Lisa, second. Kate, all in favor? Thank you.